friends. Happy Sunday. I had a lovely morning up in Santa Fe with Katie and Annalise and my parents. We're back home, having kind of a leisurely Sunday. And something it showed up, I guess, over the last 24 hours or so. It was just kind of a thought, a sort of hazily defined impression or insight about, basically, it's kind of like it ties together karma, but also it ties together our impulse to evolve, our impulse towards doing spiritual work or inner work of any kind. And basically, it sort of amounts to, the insight that I had was, when we think of the cycles of karma, we think of compulsive behavior, right? As Sadhguru has kind of described karma. So karma is compulsion. Karma is automated behavior. And our job or our opportunity is to see that and little by little let it go so we can be more free, so our lives become more free. And the insight that hit me was, the only reason we ever do this is because we get bored with a certain cycle, right? I think I was saying this on a post recently. If we're still enjoying the cyclical behavior, we are unlikely to let it go, because as far as we're concerned, the ride is enjoyable. We're enjoying the ride. I mean, that people pay to go on Ferris wheels. We pay to get on roller coasters. They all go in a loop. You end up back where you started, but we enjoy the ride. And so really the spiritual impulse arises, or the impulse to transcend a given cycle arises out of feeling no longer entertained by a given cycle. And if that's the case, it's almost like it takes all of the sort of moralizing out of spiritual practice when we recognize that there's no right way to evolve. There's not even a right time to evolve. I mean, there may be a right time to evolve, but it will be determined by our own context and our own perception of our context, our own perception of our karma, our perception of our own lives. It's a process that is born out of our own relationship to where we are, not some exterior thing that is our reference point. It's our relationship to our karma. There's always the infinite beyond. Every single human being has the infinite beyond within them, within us. So the question is, how anxious are we to let go of the cycles that we're in the middle of right now? And I guess that insight has just been showing up with slightly more clarity And another thing that it kind of illuminates is the nature of relationship, because the nature of relationship is such that we gravitate towards people who are at a point in the cycle that we are, who are maybe becoming disenchanted with a similar cycle they're a kind of similar place in terms of their own growth. Like that's what I've always found to be really gratifying, is when I can connect with people who articulate a similar struggle or a similar revelation around, here's this pattern in my life that I'm seeing, and oh my God, I do this thing, and I'm really seeing how it's a total cycle, and I'm ready to let it go. And if that's something that's close to me, if that's something, I mean, I enjoy that. Honestly, I enjoy witnessing that in an individual, almost regardless of whether it's where I am. But especially if it's with a student or a client, it's always so beautiful to see someone identify, look, oh my God, here, I'm so addicted to this pattern, and in one breath, there's a new kind of freedom there. I mean, that's, to me, is one of the most amazing experiences, which is why I love doing the work that I do. But there's camaraderie in sharing the letting go of a given kind of level of cycle, or a cycle that is somehow similar in nature, or in the way it impacts us. It's like being friends is getting bored with the same stuff at the same time, and because the question isn't just what are you bored with. The question is, well, what's next, right? It's seeing beyond it. It's seeing into the next, into the greater possibilities. That's another. Even though our experience of those things remains within us, that our own consciousness only perceives it from within us, but we can absolutely share and resonate with. We can immediately identify when someone else is going through a similar experience, or feeling a similar wave of energy around a certain kind of, either letting go or embracing something new. And so I guess it was, what's been kind of percolating for me is just that it's, because I think forming those relationships is something that, at least in my life, has not always just happened automatically. I mean, it has, but it's generally been when I go to a context where people are doing that work, and or we somehow bond over that. Our initial contact is somehow framed as a bonding around doing that kind of inner work. And relationships open doors. Relationships, a lot of times it's a conversation that kind of sparks that momentary perception of, oh, this is cyclical. Because a lot of times, we're entertained by the ride only until we observe the cyclicality. Once we observe that it's a cycle, the thrill has a little less thrill to it. Hopefully, maybe the lull has a little less lull to it. The highs and lows of the cycle cease to be compelling because we know they're just parts of a cycle. It's like, oh, a wheel's going to turn round and round. If you put a dot on the wheel, that dot is going to go round and round. Sometimes it's going to be at the top, sometimes it's going to be at the bottom. You're not mind blown by the fact that, whoa, the dot was on top of the wheel, and now the dot's on the bottom of the wheel. What happened? You're like, it's a wheel. It turned round and round. So it's usually that insight that offers the opportunity to kind of, and maybe even as I say this, maybe boredom isn't the right word. I think I use boredom because it sort of, it bluntly describes the experience of being disenchanted with a cycle, because we get it. Okay, we're going in circles here. Are we going to just keep, and we can go in circles as long as we like, but we can also stop going in circles. Once we know we're going in circles, we can stop. If we don't know we're going in circles, tricky, because now every bend in the road, every time that dot goes from the top to the bottom of the wheel, it's like the universe has changed in nature. But no, it hasn't. It's just going through a permutation. And so again, I think in my own life, my intention is simply to sit and receive occasionally, maybe a little more frequently, sit and receive the nature of experience. I think that the reason why I was able to catch the other day an energetic shift translating into a thought is because that's a pattern. That's something, and then once I identify that, once I identify this, the mechanism of it, I can identify a new kind of cycle. Because our energetic body goes through cycles. Our physical body goes through cycles. Our emotions go through cycles. Our mind goes through cycles. All of them go through cycles. And so just learning what those are and learning the relationships between them, we can take the infinite variety of the universe and still kind of not be blinded by the science of it. We can still kind of read through the lines and identify, oh, yep, here it goes again. Something Sadhguru talks about in the book Karma is that sifting through like our past lives or our past karma, is not necessary to let it go. We can let go, we can process our karma effectively without analyzing it or compartmentalizing it or really looking at it too closely. Which is good news, because it means the work is the work. There's no bonus points for, endless self-reflection. And B, getting really embroiled in our getting kind of really looking at our karma very closely can actually give us the inclination to hold on to certain parts of it and let go of others. And that's certainly an impulse that I can understand. And I think, that's why that's why ultimately the meditative stance is centered and impartial. It's not judgmental. It's centered and still. Because, of course, aspects of our karma are going to be the ones we reach for. Aspects of our karma are going to be the ones we repel or reject. And so getting in there and kind of like unpacking it all is almost a disservice to the process of simply allowing and surrendering and ultimately releasing. So I think that's what I'm bringing myself to today is just an appreciation for sitting in that still place and letting this stuff come up. Because I'm not, there's no point in rushing the cycles. There's no point in being in a hurry to end a cycle that still holds us, that still entertains us. And at the same time, the more of this work we do, the more and more swiftly at least in my experience, we tend to identify a cycle and be able to say, oh, look at this. I'm going round in circles. Here we go. And pretty quickly we get that we're on a ride. And it's like, okay, do I want to be on this ride? That's the ultimate choice. That's really it. That's the big spiritual, the gift of it all is we get to decide, do I want to be on this ride? Or am I ready to try a different ride? So, that's what I got today, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Hope you're having a lovely Sunday. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow.